Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Living in Alignment podcast. And I'm so excited to be here today with Lee Davy. You guys are in for a treat. Lee is, just to give you a little bit of his background, he's an inspirational author, creator, speaker, retreat host, breathwork specialist, and leader in global health. And he's the co-founder of Connected Community, co-steward of the Unified Alliance, co-owner of, hopefully I say this right, Imiloa
Yep.
Imiloa Institute, founder of 5D Breathwork, and the co-creator of the Breathwork Atrium. He has worked with clients one-on-one and with groups all over the world for more than 20 years. And Lee shares his voice, story, journey, passion, and compassion to support others in their journeys, should they ask for assistance, to fully understand and embrace their highest selves beyond all illusion. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. How you doing today, Lee?
Well, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to have you on here.
Good for
Um,
me.
yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. I know breathwork is a big part of what you do. And I've had conversations about some of the other elements of just different ways that we can kind of elevate our consciousness and our awareness and our health and things on this show. But breathwork isn't something we've talked about before, so I'm excited to hear everything that you have to share about that. Before we get into that, though, I would love to just hear more about your story, your backstory, how, I know you've been doing this for 20 years or so, but what were you doing before and how did you get here? And
Yeah, it's
tell us
been
a little bit about you.
a journey. The first time I remember asking questions, of course, at that time I didn't know what I was doing, but I was 13 years old, 13, 14 years old. And I was who am I? What is this? It's like, why am I here? I actually wrote the 12-week body transformation, like physical transformation challenge called Body for Life. And I wrote the founder of this at 13 being like, the challenge is cool, but I've got this fire inside to do more, to be more, to help people. Like, I don't know what it is. You seem like you have it figured out. Maybe you can mentor me, give me a job, or of course he never wrote back, but that was the first time I remember asking questions, and ever since then it's been this, just seeking and discovering and finding what I look at as the pieces of my puzzle to feel better in this physical form, to have more energy, to think more clearly. And with every piece, it was like a step on the journey, and just a clarifying of the picture of who I was and what I was truly capable of. And of course the journey continues. I feel like it's an infinite journey that we're on, and with each step is all better. I'm sure of who I am, and my belief in myself and what's possible continues to increase with each of those pieces of the puzzle.
Beautiful. So you have like all of these things that you do. Like, I don't even know how you can do this many things at once, but like, there's so many. So can you just kind of tell us a little bit about like each of these components of, the Connected Community and the Unified Alliance and the Imiloa Institute and 5D Breathwork? Like, what are all of these things?
For sure. Well, again, going back to the kind of the piece of the puzzle idea, I guess that's the way my mind works, because it started with myself and then it continued to expand to, okay, there are all these amazing organizations and solutions from every sector of society that are now upon us, and we've kind of simultaneously have access to two worlds at the same time. We've got the old paradigm and kind of the old systems and societal structures that are starting to break down, and we've simultaneously got solutions from every sector of society, from health and consciousness to new economies, land and communities, you name it. I believe we have the solutions. And now it's just about bringing those pieces of the puzzle together. And so kind of the same token with with what I do and offer, it's like if you want to do coaching, I can speak to and support you in the kind of the mind, body, spirit tools or aspects of the self. We can talk about movement. We can talk about nutrition, supplementation, breath work, meditation, um, and that feeds right into whether it's coaching or workshops or retreats. They kind of all fit together. So I don't really look at it as like, oh, I'm doing, 10 or 20 different things. I'm doing the same thing. It's just depending on, where I'm working or what I'm working with or who I'm working with. It just is presented a little bit differently.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. It all sounds really good. I would like to know, I know one of the things that you talk about is radical self-responsibility for true freedom. So I would love to know, like, what is your definition of true freedom? And I know, like, for myself and, a lot of my audience are entrepreneurs. And one of the conversations that we have a lot is about freedom. It's one of the reasons why a lot of us do what we do as far as work, so that we can have the kind of freedom that goes along with that. But I know freedom is multifaceted and multidimensional. It's not just about what kind of work we do, but I would love to hear like, what is your definition of true freedom? And you talk about living from the higher laws in conjunction with that. So if you could speak to that a little bit too, I'd love to hear
I
hear
love,
what you
I love that question. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for asking it. Uh,
have.
I love kind of talking in like algorithm and stories and stuff like that. So um, I'll share a little bit of a story in really what led me to this. And I'm from Canada originally, and in the last couple of years, when kind of the world went upside down and inside out, I ended up in Tulum, Mexico, and there were no like it was free. We were still connecting in person, and everything that was happening. And but I chose not to go back to Canada. I chose not to get any of the things that they were telling us to get, or get some of the fake things that some people were getting, so that they could still travel. And it really dawned on me, and I started by getting really, really honest with myself and asking myself the question, am I truly free? And I came to the stark conclusion that no, I am not. We are not. In my humble opinion, if we can't go anywhere, do anything we choose, without having to do something that would be against our free will, so long as we intend and do no harm to any other beings, then we're truly not free. And so it took me down this whole rabbit hole, to being able to discover what that is, and the difference between the legal world and legal procedure and what is actually law. And so what's kind of come from that whole journey is this idea of radical self-responsibility. And it begins with the sacred, what I call the sacred self journey. And that's all the pieces we talked about before. Like, what are the things that we're doing from a place of noble self-firstness to make sure our cup is full, make sure that my mind is working optimally, make sure that I have enough energy, that I feel super, super healthy. Um, and then to align with and operate from the higher laws. And the foundational law is the law of love and what is true. And it requires us to always seek to discover what is true beyond our lens of perception, to allow everything and to feel everything. And then we've got the universal laws like cause and effect and polarity, and these provide all of creation with a foundational mathematical framework from which everything in our material world actually comes from. And these laws are happening in our lives anyways. So my question became, why are we not attuning to them and doing our best to align with them and work with them in our lives rather than them just kind of happening?
Right.
Got the laws of the soul, which should allow all emotion to pass through us freely. And it's like, so that's the higher kind of energetic aspect of this. And then in this reality, we have our own law, and we can think of it as setting up no trespassing signs as it pertains to my property. And my property is my body, my right to travel, to have land, my family, and if we're not able to express and set up those no trespass signs, then it's implied that we're playing by the legal system. But we can actually step out of that and express our own law with the intent to bring forth remedy to any and all controversy. And so that's this idea of radical self responsibility. I'm not going to call the police or a lawyer to handle my problems. I'm going to say, you know what, I'm taking responsibility for all of my own thoughts, feelings, and actions. And at times when you maybe overstep your boundaries, especially if you're not really aware of it, I'm going to hold you accountable, which then can turn into liability. And I'm going to express that to you.
Mm. I love this so much. Are you familiar with the Tao Te Ching at all?
I am, yes.
Okay, so this is something that I practice every day, and so I feel like this is in alignment with those teachings too, because it talks about how like the justice doesn't come from the courtroom, and that we can live without force, and that we can just live from a place of, like you were talking about, allowing everything, right? And just from a place of just like allowing everything is just like happening, like the grass is growing, our hearts are beating, there's a presence here that's moving everything. And like you were saying, like we fight it, like we try to like think that we're in control of everything, and that the police are in control and the court judge is in control and all of this stuff, when actually it's so much simpler than that and so much more beautiful than that when we allow it. Is that kind of the gist of?
It really is. It really is. And taking our, we've kind of been taught this Newtonian model of reality where we're going to give our power away to the external person, thing, or circumstance, right?
Mm,
And quantum model says, no, I'm actually going to take all of that power back. And this is why, like meditation and breath work and some of these tools are so powerful, because we turn off the senses and we start to create maybe not create, but reconnect with and remember our rich inner world, which then begins to flow out and become our external reality.
We've been so I guess pre-programmed um, to this Newtonian model of reality. This give our power away to the external person, thing, or circumstance. And the quantum model says if we actually just turn our senses off and go within and reconnect with and remember this rich inner world that we have, then we can start to really become the creators of our reality. And part of that, without getting into politics or governments or anything like that, is that part of the power we've given away is we've somehow turned these public servants into authority figures. And
mm,
so this idea of radical self-responsibility says, I'm going to stop relying on the state and giving, this fear over to these figures that were only ever supposed to be our public servants. And I think if we can start to do that, I look at everything as kind of like we're creating bridges,
mhm,
bridges to each other, bridges to solutions, bridges to like maybe a new societal operating system of, actually truly being free and taking all of that power back, so that we're taking that responsibility for all of our own stuff, and then lovingly, humbly, nobly holding each other accountable when at times we trespass or cross boundaries.
mm. Yeah, I love this. So can you talk a little bit about, so I know, you were talking about like breath work and meditation and that kind of thing. Like, what is it about breath work and meditation that maybe tell us like why it's such a powerful tool, and some of the, some of the benefits of it from a scientific standpoint?
Absolutely. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs and that sort of thing, can get incredibly busy, can feel incredibly stressed and even overwhelmed at times. And the beautiful thing about the brain, about the chemistry, the neurophysiology of us, is that our brains are very neuroplastic, which means they have the capability to change structurally and functionally. So if we're taking time every day to turn off the outside world, and if you think about perceiving everything from our senses, then we're always like, thinking about tasks and going from A to B and putting food on the table. And so we're running around and we're creating a lot of incoherence in the brain. When we shut all of that off and we use the breath, we actually quiet the thinking mind. We bring more coherence back into the brain. We actually flood the body with, virus fighting chemistry, happy endorphins, feel good hormones. We lower our stress levels. We're manipulating and playing with our CO2 and oxygen levels. And as soon as you lower your CO2 levels, you're creating an alkaline, oxygen rich environment. So disease can't live in that type of environment. So the combination of the breath and meditation and just being able to shut off and relax the mind, when you actually come back to whatever your tasks are, whatever your role is as CEO or entrepreneur, it's like there's the coherence allows you to really be much more precise and efficient with whatever it is that you're working on, that you're focused on.
So is the breath work that you do and that you teach and that you facilitate, is it something that people can do on their own, like every day, or is it something that they have to go, to an event to do with you, or how does that work?
It is, I mean, you can do it on your own. I think having somebody there, an instructor, a coach, somebody that I know for a lot of busy people, scheduling is really, really important. And also that we've been, again, kind of trained that, okay, I'm gonna, if I've got a job, or if I'm in service, or I'm gonna take care of everybody else, and then I'll take care of myself last. And it's actually kind of the flip side of that, of saying, actually, I'm going to have this noble sense of self-firstness. I'm going to fill my cup first. So that's kind of the long way of saying, yes, you can absolutely do it on your own. And, if you want kind of a deeper experience, it's like having a personal trainer, but for your mind, and your breath, rather than just for your body. And what I tell people is just to play with it. That's how I came up with this method, was just literally playing with the breath and doing my best to, have this thing that I kind of whisper when I'm offering the breath, and it's to lose yourself, lose the thinking mind, let go of the thinking mind and the thoughts of who we think we are and what we think we know, to remember more fully and really access the subconscious, this place of stillness, also the present moment, and who we truly are. So yes, and
yeah. So what is 5D breath work? Like, what, you've created this method, right? And I know that breath work is kind of becoming a mainstream thing, like meditation has now. So what is the difference between, say, whatever other types of breath work there are and 5D breath work, or what is 5D breath work?
Yeah, so it's what wanted to come through me with me just playing with the breath. And I love this idea of adding, it's like, if the breath works this well on its own, then what would happen if I combined breath and meditation? And then that works like this. What would happen if I combine this, and this? And that's kind of what I did with the 5D method. So first of all, as a facilitator, and I do have a teacher training for it, so I'm teaching other teachers to teach this method. We're actually breathing with our clients, right? So it becomes less dogmatic, because as soon as you go through 10, 15, 20 breaths, your thinking mind starts to kind of quiet. So you start to walk this line of, I'm not really thinking anymore. I'm super relaxed. So whatever variation of the breath And I had like chanting, like tonal activations, which support and unlocking the universal energy centers. So there are all these other aspects, auto suggestion, which in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich talks about being the third step to riches. So there are these different aspects that are woven together, and then we just play with the breath. We play with the holds. We play with the speeds. So sometimes we're speeding it up. Sometimes we're slowing it down. Sometimes we're holding on the exhale. Sometimes we're taking it into the brain, to the pineal gland, to like supercharge and activate the pineal gland. Sometimes we're holding at the heart, and it's different every time based on the intentions that I set, that my clients set, and the energy, of course, of the groups.
Wow. Sounds amazing. So I know before we jumped on, I asked you if you had any experience with plant medicine. You said that you have quite a bit of experience with it. And so based on your experience with both, what would you say, like, do you think both are necessary to get, help people to, live at their full potential? Or do you think breath work on its own is good? What are your thoughts about plant medicine and breath work, and do they go together, or are they completely separate? And I just like to hear whatever you can speak to about that based on your experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like we're here to experience. And so if you're feeling called to a medicine journey, then that's an experience that your soul wants. So not to refrain from that, and really just listen to where you're guided. And something like the breath, I really feel like it's such a beautiful catalyst to take us to those very same places. And so again, I love yes and, if you're feeling called to try the medicines, then really listen to that and take that journey. And the breath doesn't cost anything, especially once you've learned to do it. You can play with it on your own, and you can be taken to the very same places. And after the medicines and that sort of thing, it's what you're doing. It's like, what is that sacred self practice that you've built for yourself? Because if you're just relying on the medicines, and you've got to do a medicine journey every month, every couple of months, every 6 months, whereas you do the medicine, you gain some insights, then the breath work, the meditation, all of the other tools that you have, and whatever you've built your sacred self practice around, becomes your integration and your way forward.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. I was going to ask about integration. So breath work can serve as part of the integration with plant medicine, is what you're saying.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And even it can even enhance your medicine journey.
Yeah. I love this. So does the breath work, like the work that you do, incorporate it all with any type of shadow work? Do you do shadow work?
Yeah, definitely talk about all that stuff. I actually just hosted a darkness retreat. So you want to talk about shadow? Like we sat in darkness for 4.5 days. So
like actual darkness, like black,
yep.
No light. Wow.
Yep. 106 total hours of darkness. And we were fasting as well. And so yeah, there's so much profundities from all these different tools, and from sitting in stillness and leveraging the breath. I've got a 6-week like deep dive teacher training for the breath, that we really go into the breath, and you go into it's very, very experiential. So we're leveraging the breath to go deeper into the self, to really, it's like all of our cells and the microtubules are what hold on to kind of old memories and old energies and that sort of thing. So, to be able to take the breath, to shut off the thinking mind, to go in to the cells, it's like we can start to liberate that stored energy, which begins to free up space. And, the physiological cascade of benefits that stems from that it's so profound.
Hmm. So I know you have a retreat center, right? Is that retreat center that I saw on the website? Is that your retreat center?
So I was a partner in it, and I've actually just moved on from that organization. It's something I didn't mention at the outset, but we ended up, because of the last 2 years, myself and a number of other of the kind of the founding family, we chose to receive our funds back and move forward in a different direction.
Gotcha. Okay. And then what about the superhuman stuff? Is that stuff that you still do? Superhuman?
Those are retreats. So I offer kind of the yin style, like the darkness retreat, and then what I call becoming superhuman, which essentially is a more yang, like hero's journey, where we're breathing every day, we're meditating every day. We'll do ice baths, temazcals, fire ceremonies, maybe jump out of a plane or rappel down the side of a cliff or a mountain or something like that. Because it's like, once you've started to take control of your physiology again, because what happens in life is something will happen outside of us and it will trigger us to feel a certain way inside. And so whether it's stress or anger or sadness or fear, and so to retrain the nervous system, we've got to get comfortable in facing those feelings and really feeling those feelings, right? And then when we do, all of a sudden, the same thing doesn't affect us the same way the next time. It's like, oh, that thing that was really, really scary, it's not so scary this time.
Yeah. So does this kind of stuff that you're talking about help with like deep trauma? Like I know plant medicine is often used for deep trauma. People say like you can heal like what would take 10 years of therapy to heal in one plant medicine ceremony sometimes. Does the breath work and the even like the adrenaline stuff, is that good for trauma? I mean, I do a lot of adrenaline stuff as it is, like jumping out of airplanes. I love that kind of stuff. Is that like an actual, I do it for the rush of it, but like, is there a healing benefit to that, like for trauma?
For sure. Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. And to be able to really go into and identify the feeling, whatever it is. So let's say we're dealing with fear, right? Something happens outside of you and it causes you to feel this fear that, maybe something happened to you when you're 6 months old, 6 years old, whatever it was, right? And so that's kind of this, like the subconscious program running in the background, or the cellular memory that's running, that causes a release of certain chemistry in the body for you to feel that fear, right? So when you're able to identify it and kind of step back from it, and I love the shift in perspective from reaction versus response. So if I catch the thing and I react, then the outside world is in control of me. If I catch the thing and I say, okay, I realize what's happening, I feel the fear, and I choose to take 10 breaths and I choose to feel the fear a little bit more, then I'm responding and I remain in control. And by taking that pause, by responding and by taking those breaths, and by going into the fear and feeling it more in my body, I can actually retrain my nervous system.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's awesome. So kind of like EMDR, which I tried once. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I have another friend that does it, that basically she can like recognize a trigger before she gets triggered. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and then you don't have to like fully go into the fear.
Absolutely. Think of it. I love the analogy. If you're inside the washing machine,
Mm-hmm.
or the dryer is maybe a better one, right? And you're like, something happens and you're just inside going around with all the stuff. Whereas if you're on the outside looking in, you can be like, oh, that's those are my patterns. This is where I usually like fly off the handle and scream back, or
Mm,
right. So you've separated yourself enough that you can identify what's going on. And this idea of awareness precedes transformation. So
mm,
now that you're aware of the patterns, the habits, the feelings, the emotions, the triggers, you can choose to really start to respond differently to them.
mm. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And then what about like for you? I mean, I know that you're very physically fit. Do you have like a certain, are you a biohacker? Do you have like a certain physical protocol that you follow? Are you um anti certain foods, or what's your take on diet?
Yeah, I really feel I kind of look at everything as frequency.
Mm-hmm.
If we begin to optimize all of the frequencies that are within and around us, and we're eating healthier food, and we're structuring our water, and we're cautious of our thoughts and thinking the right thoughts and speaking positive words, then all of a sudden we're taking all of those frequencies and we're beginning to vibrate at a higher level. So
Mm,
I feel like it's all important, to really, watch what you're eating, use supplementation, nootropics for the brain. Movement is incredibly important. I've the last couple of years, I've really gotten into eating a lot of fruit for the detoxification benefits, and fruit has its highest electrical charge, and that's what our cells function on. So to be able to incorporate that, not only for the detoxification benefits, but to actually recharge, rehydrate our lymphatic systems, our adrenals, our kidneys, and recharge the electrical um, connection and communication from and between the cells. It's all incredibly important. And then you've got the meditation, the breath work, so it's like if the mind, the body, and the spirit are the aspects of the self, then we've got tools, we've got a framework, we've got things, products and services that we can work with within those aspects to really align them so that they're all speaking the same language, and we ultimately feel our best selves.
mm. So does the work that you do incorporate everything? Like, do you help people with like physical exercise stuff too, and like diet and breath work and like all of it? Or
Yeah, that was my former life. So I owned and operated a gym out of Toronto for over a decade. So we did, the body fat testing, the nutrition, the supplementation, all that good stuff. And now, so that's my coaching program is I call it self mastery,
Mhm.
modern way to self mastery. And it's a 6 month journey of, okay, we're gonna take these small incremental steps, because more isn't better, but better is better, and better leads to more. So if you're taking these smaller steps over the course of 6 months, and we focus on nutrition, and we focus on movement, and then meditation and breath work, and um, it's like all the pieces really start to align and fall into place, so that you feel better and better. You have more energy. Your mind's more focused and clear. And then even from that, if we talk about entrepreneurship, it's like it's amazing when you get the self into alignment, how your passions and your purpose start to show up, and align with, man, like this is the thing or things or the business that I want to create and do the rest of my life. But it's hard to get to that place if you're not in alignment.
Mhm. So that was going to be my next question, was going to be about the entrepreneur, just because I want to make sure that we speak about what you do in conjunction with what a lot of my audience is looking for. So can you just speak a little bit to, like, as an entrepreneur, why some of this stuff is important, and how, I mean, I know you just touched on how it can help people get in touch with their purpose at a deeper level, but let's say somebody has a business that they love, they don't really want a new line of work to do, but they're just stuck or plateaued or struggling in some way with their confidence or whatever it is. Can you talk about, like, some of the benefits of you know, elevating your mind and body in this way that you teach, and how it would benefit an entrepreneur?
Absolutely, absolutely. Think about it, kind of in terms of just being more clear, more concise, more precise. Um, when you bring coherence into the brain, it's like, if you were, let's say you had an old box, you were packing up, and you had a box where you didn't really know where everything was, and you had to really sort through and pick through all the stuff, and it's going to take you so much time and effort to go through that. It's the same when there's a lot of incoherence in the brain and you feel like super stressed and you're always running around and you're always on, that high stress alert. It's like, as soon as you bring coherence in the brain, you take all of that stress away and you come at it from a more peaceful, relaxed state of mind. It's like when you're looking for something or you're going to put together a presentation or whatever it is, it's just like it flows out of you so much easier, so much faster.
Mm.
So just in terms of negating stress, of having more energy, of feeling more, more clarity of mind, and being more efficient in your life. It's like you can only really get there if you tend to the self first, in my humble opinion.
No, I totally agree. I have a pretty extensive morning routine that's all about, like, I don't even start my work until like later in the morning, because my meditation and my journaling and things that I do in the morning are my exercise. They're non-negotiables. So I'm curious, like, do you have like a specific kind of way to start the day that you do or that you recommend for people for best results? Or do you kind of just recommend incorporating the breath work and meditation throughout the day where it works? Or what's your recommendation around that?
I'm like you. I think to bookend your days with sacred self first time, with you time, is it's really the only way to fly. So for me, I start my days with a couple of hours of meditation. I go to the gym 5 days a week. I do breath work after the gym. Do breath work on, when I don't go to the gym instead of, and then start with my meals. And then the at the end of my day, um, I'm doing gratitude. I'm praying. I'm meditating. I'm connecting and saying, okay, like, thank you for the amazing day that I had and all the things that fell into place. And this is what I want tomorrow. So really setting up those intentions, starting and ending my day with me. So that my cup's full.
Yeah, and then you get to marinate on that while you sleep, instead of whatever other somebody else might be doing right before they go to bed, watching some crime show on TV or
Mhm.
something. Do you do intermittent fasting or recommend
I
it?
do. Yeah. I
Yeah.
fast. I actually fast every Monday. Um, and during the darkness retreat, we fasted for 4 days, for 5 days. So yeah, that's a part of my routine every single week. At least so 24 hours turns into about 36 hours when I go overnight. And then typically my days, I don't start until 12, 11, 12 o'clock.
And what time do you stop at night? Do you have a cutoff time?
Usually between 7 and 8, usually around 7.
Yep. And do you do like the cold plunge thing, like Tony Robbins does, like the breath work and and the cold plunge. I forget the name of the method. There's a method that my friend wants me to start doing. I jump in the ocean in the morning. It's still pretty cold here, and that like
Mm.
feels amazing. But I know that like cold plunging is a thing. Is that part of your routine or no?
Yeah, 100%. The cold and the heat, because a lot of places now um, have the sauna and have the cold plunge. So to be able to do that quite frequently is really really impactful. The cold increases your white and red blood cell count, your platelets, by up to almost 50% for 6 consecutive days after you get in the cold. So again, you combine that with your breath, with meditation. It's like, we're really at a stage where there's so many tools and so many amazing things that we have access to, that you talk about biohacking. We're really able to slow, if not reverse, the aging process. And I know a lot of people will think that that's hooey, but I mean, I'm I'll be 47 this year, and I feel better than I ever have. Stronger than I ever have. Uh, Mind's super clear, got more energy. So it's, I think the old paradigm, the old narrative is that when we age, we have to slow down and things don't work as well, and it all starts here, in the mind and what you believe. But we've got the tools and the access to so many incredible things, and if we optimize all of those frequencies that I talked about before, then we really can vibrate, operate at an optimized level for a prolonged period of time.
I love it. And I totally agree. And I don't buy into the aging. I'm older than you, quite a bit older than you. And same thing, people are like, you can't be in good shape at this age during this change in your life. I'm like, "Oh, I'm not buying that. I'm not settling for that." I mean, it took some tweaking to get my body to start responding. It doesn't respond the way it did when it was younger to certain things, but I believe it is all in the mind, and that as I don't know if you know who Tony Horton is, the creator of P90X, he says aging is for losers.
Yes, yes, it is. I've got a mantra that I'm still 29 years old. And 2 years ago, I did a quick little aside. When I was in Vancouver, I did a series of tests with a guy there that calls himself the Muscle Doctor, Vancouver Muscle Doctor. If you're in Vancouver, check him out. He's awesome. But my internal age, my chronological age was 29, and my metabolic age was 17.
Wow.
So we are what we think.
Yeah. And there is something too, like, whether you're considering yourself a biohacker or not, there's definitely something to those frequencies, like you were talking about, and taking care of our body in every way that we can. It makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And there's, like during the darkness retreat, we were doing red light therapy, and you talk about Tony Robbins a lot. Like my friends in Tulum have a biocharger. So we were using that, combining it with the ice baths and the breathing and some of these other techniques. And it's like, we really can change, and change our minds, change our physicality, optimize our energy, optimize, our thought patterns. And then that, you optimize and align the aspects of the self. And that just goes into every aspect of your life, entrepreneurial, your relationships, your partnerships, everything. So it really can change everything. And it starts with radical self-responsibility and saying, you know what, I'm going to stop playing victim. I'm going to stop playing the blame game. I'm going to stop giving my power away to the outside world. I'm going to take all my power back. I'm going to continue my sacred self journey, and I'm going to start to operate from these higher laws. Do that for 6 months and see how your life changes.
Yeah, such good advice. I love it. So can you just kind of give us, because I know we're getting to the end here, but I want to make sure that everybody knows all of the different ways, if people want to work with you on some way, or do one of your retreats, or do your breathwork facilitator training, or work with you one-on-one, like what are all the things? Where are all the different things that you offer to help people in these areas?
I would say, yeah, if you're interested, probably the simplest way to get in touch is just through my website, and it's Lee-Davy, Davy.com. And you can just send me an email, which is Lee@Lee-Davy.com.
And I'll put all this in the
And
show notes too.
yeah, and just, whatever it is that you're looking to do, even if you just want to have a discussion about things, if you're not really sure, um, shoot me an email, and we can jump on a call and go from there. Otherwise, you can follow me at 5D Breathwork on Instagram, and I'm always posting like inspirational quotes and little videos and different things like that, and about what I'm doing and different talks that I've done, and that sort of thing. So you can stay in touch there.
How often do you do like the darkness retreat or the other part of that you said you were doing with the breath work and the meditation and the skydiving and all of that? Like, how often do you do stuff like that?
So the breath work is quite often. I've actually got another, deep dive teacher training starting on the 20th of May. And that'll be 6 weeks. The darkness right now, just keeping it to once a year. It's something I just started offering last year, and we just completed one a couple weeks ago. And then the hero's journey is so that's the other style of retreat. We're doing that every few months. So it's something that you can, again, if you're interested in, you can check out the website, or even just submit, and we'll jump on a call, and I can take you through all the details.
Cool. I just have to ask another question about the darkness retreat. So
Great.
I know you're in the dark, but are you actually doing like shadow work of some sort, or are you just not having light and doing like the other types of things that you were talking about with the light or whatever, the red thing?
No, so we kind of set it up, and the first 2 days were all about really going deep and letting go, if you will. So whether it was with regards to worthiness, or working with your little one, shadow work, or even we set the intention to even go back to our inception, and really kind of unpack all of that. And then the last 2 days were, really setting our focus on what we wanted, how we wanted to feel, what we wanted to manifest in our lives, so on and so forth. And it's really interesting when you take away sight and like music and devices and just all of the things that we typically distract ourselves with, or stimulate ourselves with, or co-regulate with. When you take all that away, the first 2 days, I would say the mind is still searching for stuff. So it's like, okay, during this part of the day, I'm going to have this mantra, or I'm going to set this intention, or I'm going to work on this. By the end of day 3 into day 4, all of that ceased. And I don't know how else to say it. Like, I became the darkness. I became the stillness. And there was no thoughts. There was no searching for something to connect with, or like, oh, I should be doing this. It was just completely still. And then from that stillness, it's like it bubbled up from nothingness. And for me, it was this idea around worthiness. And it was just kind of like, it came to the surface, it kind of showed itself, and then there was like a root, and I kind of heard this voice like, oh, you don't need that anymore, clip. But it wasn't my intention to think about that, or to unpack that. It's what came about as a result of the nothingness. Does that make sense? I know it's hard to articulate.
Yeah. How many people were there?
We just had a small group. There were just 3 of us.
And do you know, for the other people that were there, or for yourself, like what are some of the benefits that came from that since it ended?
Well, it's seems kind of cliche to say, you don't know what you have until it's gone.
Mm,
But again, you take away your sight, you take away music and TV and interaction and people and everything in your daily life. You take that away and you sit with nothingness. When you come back to it, the gratitude, the appreciation, um, the realization of where I have not been living fully in my life,
mm,
and that, oh my God, yes, life is the gift.
yes.
So
Love
those were my biggest takeaways.
I just started crying. Ah, I
Mhm.
love that. I might have to come do a darkness retreat. Um, well, like I said, I'm gonna put all of your stuff in the show notes. But before we end, I want to just ask you, is there anything I didn't ask you? Anything else you want to say? Anything you want to leave people with? Anything we didn't cover that you want to talk about a little bit? I want to make sure you feel like you've given everything you came here to give today.
I would just, I would invite people that um, if you're hesitant or on the fence about any of this stuff, and you don't necessarily see how it could benefit you or how it could, really move into um, your business or what you do for a living, I'll invite you to open to the idea that there's more. There's more that we don't understand. There's more than what we've been taught to believe, or of what we think of, how we think about ourselves or wealth or relationships or love or any of this stuff. And if you can just open to the idea and just try. I mean, be skeptical, but try some of these things with an open mind and really get honest with yourself. And if you want more freedom, if you want more energy, if you feel like um, you're too stressed out, or you're stuck in any way, shape, or form, when you open to some of these things and you try some of these tools, um, and you feel a little bit better. And I love the idea that you can't unexperience an experience. So go into an experience with an open mind and come out on the other side and then reassess how you're feeling. And if you feel better, if you have more energy, if you feel more open and they're kind of like, wow, that was amazing. What else is there? I would suggest that you're on your way to creating a really powerful sacred self, or maybe reconnecting or recommitting to your sacred self journey. And then when you start to look at, aligning to and operating from the higher laws, in this idea of really taking responsibility for all of your own stuff and no longer blaming or shaming or victimizing or being the victim, but saying, you know what, it's time. I can take my power back and own everything. And if you own all of your stuff, all of the uh, you know things that you've done in your life that have gotten you to this point, if you take that level of responsibility, then I think you'll be amazed at where you can go.
Mm,
But it starts with the self. It starts in here. It starts with the heart, opening your mind, opening your heart, and then taking the steps as they show up. And I think if we each can show up first off and foremost for ourselves, then that will allow us to continue to show up for each other more fully. And I truly feel like that's how we change the world. That's how we cross the bridge to a world that truly works for each and every one of us.
yeah. Wow. So beautifully said. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. It's been so great having this conversation with you, Lee. Thank you so much for being here today. And
Thank you, Amy. Such an honor. Thank you for having me.
yeah, Yeah. And yeah, if anybody wants to learn more about Lee, like I said, all of his information will be in the show notes. And he's lovely. I highly recommend going and getting to know him and what he has to offer. And there's room for improvement for all of us in all of these ways that he shared with us today. So thank you. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.